Hello and welcome to episode 249 of the FReality Podcast. May the 4th be with you. What in the world do acid-dripping aliens, masked crime fighters, and a brooding evil conglomerate have in common? Find out on today's episode. Adam, Rowdy, and I are here to spin the records as your VR DJs today. Jose's off handling an emergency reconnaissance mission, and we're going to battle like Pokemon trainers over the latest topics. That includes how to have a healthy heart attack in space. What do rats really taste like? A special segment about your hands, average size balls, and mixed reality. We'll go rummaging through Apple's rumor mill, and then talk about how one company's big chess moves aim to dominate the future of spatial computing. Towards the end, and in terms of the cream of the crop of standout titles that VR has to offer you today, Adam's parachuted in to support on releases while Jose fights off a horde of hungry alligators down south in Miami. Our crew intros are a staple of the show, but what says it better than our show trailer? We're moving the trailer into the show. This is a bit of a trial. So more of you get the chance to jam along with us because we always bop to this intro as we're kicking off. But before we cut to that, to echo one little fact, this slick piece was created by a proud Ukrainian right through the early months of the Russian invasion back in 2022. And you can't get more dystopian than that. All right, Rowdy, run it. And welcome back. Now it's time to talk our usual highlights. What did we enjoy? What bit off one of your appendages? You know, anything that stands out from the past 2 weeks to update our audience and hallmark the beginning of another feisty VR celebration. Rowdy, you've got pole position today. I'm wondering how you're doing, but also, what were the last few lines you scribbled down in that scientific journal of yours?
Ooh, I don't use a scientific journal anymore. That's from my university days when I was doing an internship, and everybody had to have this like big book, and you would just like paste stuff in there and like take pictures of, I don't know, animals and like what they were doing.
Did you have to glue stuff in with those little?
Oh, I glued stuff everywhere in there.
Oh my god!
Yeah. Those were the times.
Scrapbooking for scientists.
Yeah, exactly. We never grew out of it. That's kind of what happens. Like, all scientists are all just big kids playing around with dangerous stuff. That's what I do. No, my highlight for the past couple of weeks is I bought another game. Like, I bought a Anno 1800, an older game. I don't know if anyone ever played it, but it's something that I've been like eyeing up already for a little while. Everybody knows that I kind of like strategy games just in general, and Anno 1800 is maybe not that much of the strategy, but a little bit more on the management side of things. And I've been enjoying it. Again, I've said multiple times, I would like this kind of stuff to come more to a VR platform, but even more so with like the Apple Vision Pro, I would like it to come to, you know, like a mixed reality kind of thing where you have like a giant table with like these kind of things happening, and you can like zoom in, like we saw like in Brass Tactics a little bit, like, you know, like that like control that you have over units over the battlefield. So I think that is really awesome. Maybe not the ideal way to play these kind of games, but I do think it is really cool to see a game like that eventually coming to, you know, a really or a bigger game coming to a virtual reality or a mixed reality or an augmented platform. Yeah, because
we've really not had a lot. Like, I mean, Brass Tactics was cool. There were a couple of other games that came and went. Even on App Lab, I haven't seen. I mean, strategy games are tough because you've got to get the balance right,
Yeah.
for the game to even be enjoyable. So
Yeah. But even that, like, because I would say Anno 1800 is more of a management game where you have so many little levers you need to control, which is, I think, at least fun to do. But it's also very visually appealing, I think, unless you zoom in too much, because then everything turns into a polygon. But like it does give that idea of like, you have this living world in front of you where you interact with, and you by doing certain actions, you influence like what is happening on that specific, front. And I really enjoyed that aspect. And I think something like that would work really well in VR, where you like, you modify certain things. You have, a little bit like City Skyline did, where, you have your controller and you have a dashboard where you control certain things. But then you can also visually see that happening and being reflected into that game world. I think that is something that would be really cool.
What would you think of a game if you took similar to Ingress and Pokemon Go, right? Took world like global data from say Google, right? And you're tapping into their Google Maps database or Google Earth, and you were actually taking like real geographic data and then having a management or a strategy sim on top of that. I think mixed with some kind of ability to self-educate in that. Like, to me, that combination could work, but I don't know. I don't think I've seen a game use real-world data yet.
Yeah,
in a
I think it's
successful way.
very complicated. Like, I just want something like this in virtual reality, and I'm already cool. Sim wants the entire world mapped into it.
See people doing awful things to very specific cities.
That's a very good point. Yes, that would be on creators' feeds before long, wouldn't it? Yeah, but we do need it. We absolutely need it. But I'm glad you found yourself a new game, though. That's definitely one of the best feelings. So you're liking it so far, putting a good number of hours in?
Yeah, I mean, it's not going to replace Age of Empires. I already knew that from the moment I booted it up. But because Age of Empires just it's different in every kind of way. It's so tailored. There's so much competitive edge to that as well. It's like a real-time strategy game, and they do that really well. And I don't think that there's, for me at least, any other title that really can compete with that. Maybe StarCraft, but StarCraft is, again, a very different type of
I'm a StarCraft
strategy.
boy. I don't know. Did we ever have this conversation? I don't remember. But
I mean, I love StarCraft, but it's much faster paced. Age of Empires is much more the balance between military micro and economic macro management. Yeah, so you need to balance that out really well.
Yeah, I was always rubbish.
Hopefully I'm not spoiling something that you were going to mention later, Zim, but there's Homeworld, I think that came out right recently and has a mixed reality mode. It's not my kind of game, so I know, nothing about it or how it works on VR, but that's, I guess ships in mixed reality.
Yeah, ships in a spatial orient. It's a very good shout though, because Homeworld back in the StarCraft days was like, oh wow, we've got this, space 3D management sim it was such a cool kind of new way for PC games to kind of go into that, to break into that space, literally and figuratively. I'm a little bit underwhelmed with what I've seen of the visuals for Homeworld. A few years ago, we got a game called House of something in like 2016, 2017. That was pretty cool. It was colorful in a way that I really liked and was that kind of same space management sim. So to see a better IP come with, and this happens a lot, like a built for VR game, I hope they got it right. I don't know what devs came with that. I don't think it was the original development studio, though. I think it was another team dealing with that project. So you always worry if you apply a big IP to an inexperienced in VR studio, you don't usually get a good output. If you take a big IP and you marry it with an experienced studio, take, for example, Horizon Call of the Mountain with Firesprite, you usually end up with something pretty cool. And we're actually going to talk about that stuff, so it's very topical. Thanks for bringing it up, Adam. That was good.
Hey.
Nice highlight, Rowdy. Good. New game on the horizon. That's great. Adam, what about you? How have you been? Are you just taking it easy or just having a float about the place, perhaps undertaking another action-packed trip to Jurassic Park?
I feel like every highlight lately has something weird that I have. I don't know. It just happens to be that way lately. But, so last week I did a bit of stabbing. This week I practiced hiding the corpse. Hiding corpses. Specifically just one dude, at least in this demo. So there's
Hoping this is a game. I'm hoping this is a game.
Right? Yeah, okay. I mean, let's just say it's a game. And there's a demo out it's on side quest, so you've got to side load it, but it's called Hide the Corpse. And it's I like the aesthetics of this a lot, actually. It's like a 70s themed.
Yeah, you're playing it for the
literally just
graphics. Yeah, sure.
You just anyway, you get thrown in a house, you see a corpse, and you've got, I think it is 4 minutes to hide it before the cops come. And there's different places you can hide them. Like it's sort of like unlockables. Like once you hide a corpse the first time, on the bottom you can see like, oh, you successfully hid him in the tub or in the closet or in the couch. But you have to sort of, like, that's as far as I went. You have to sort of discover the other places that you could potentially hide this body. And so this is weirdly enough, it's also on. They're doing a Kickstarter campaign with this as well. So it looks like they have plans on having more areas of the house or just more locations to hide the corpse. Like not just places to hide, but actual like different physical locations. And it's interesting. I don't know. Like these are very TikTok-y games. I feel like, so I don't know. Like how fun these are to actual like normal people. But I don't know, I find them hilarious, so I've always been curious.
Definitely worth the views. When you loaded the dude into the hot tub, or I guess that was a game trailer, so it wasn't necessarily you. But oh my god,
gonna be really interesting on this one.
That's great. What a great shout. I love it. It's great. Hide the corpse. I just
It's
worry.
fun. There's
Is that
actually
a paid game on App Lab then, or
no? The demo itself is free, but I'm assuming their Kickstarter is quite high. Like they're looking for, I think, like $25,000, and I'm like, whoa, that's I mean, I don't know anything about making a game or what it costs to get to where they want it to be, but I'm like, holy, that's a little high, I think. But it's fun. I think that maybe instead of TikTok game, I'll throw this in the like party VR game sort of a category. Although I guess it is harder to find people who want to come over to play VR with you. I don't know how common of a scenario that is yet, but it's fun. This kind of thing is right up my alley. But I know I'm a little special.
So it's a party VR game. So wait, you hide it, and so I thought it was AI, or the cops actually players then. Is this multiplayer?
No, it's not. It's completely single player. But I imagine like if you're playing this with friends together and you have this casted on a TV or something, like it might be fun to watch your friends try to, because I will say the physics on it are pretty good. Like there's definitely heft to everything.
The body.
Like you can't. Yeah, well, the body and even and I was trying to bury him with suitcases. The suitcases themselves were heavy, like the couch cushions. So it's there's a lot more trickery involved than actually trying to like fit this guy. Like at one point I tried to hide him in my couch and his body's just not bending the way I want it to. But it should, because he's dead. Why can't I just break something? I don't know.
Bring out the hacksaw, right?
That's what I'm saying. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe that's in the full game, not the demo. I don't know.
Yeah, well, there definitely are. There is heft to dead bodies, that's for sure. I mean, that's something that people, I don't say it often, but I used to deal with that. I used to deal with dead bodies. Like that was part of one of my earlier jobs. Well-paid job,
really?
but
yeah, Sim used to be a mafiosi.
That's right. No, but it's weird. The first time you deal with a dead body and you like grab the arm or something, right? And like the cold flesh and the coldness of the bone like penetrates through the skin. Especially for someone who's just recently passed. And I know this is a weird segment, but it's a really odd, like Neanderthal feeling vibe that you get when you're in that moment. And I'm not talking about someone who's been dead for a long time and they're in a casket. I'm talking someone who died 20 minutes ago. And, it's weird how the temperature goes out of the body so quickly. And at the same time, you feel the coldness of the bones through the skin. It's a weird experience. When you get a chance in real life to experience, you'll love it. But
I've only ever dealt with like dead animals because I used to work at an animal shelter, but not dead people. Like I have
that's weird.
Fond memories of like a frozen Saint Bernard and trying to stuff him in the barrel to go to the. But his legs are sticking out, so it took two of us to try to like.
Oh my god!
That's why you have to get them in the barrels before they freeze. Otherwise, their legs, you can't fit them in the barrel. Anyway.
Then you gotta get the hacksaw out. Oh my! Well, this is a lively start to another FReality. You bunch of nutters.
Yay!
Well, to everyone else, a big thanks again for making the live show. It means a lot to have you with us here, and we're glad to be your chosen news-fueled entertainment. If you had highlights yourselves, please drop them in chat. We'll reflect on some of that too. I'll give Adam the job of scanning the lines and seeing if she can find any troublemakers out there. And with that, on to my little highlight. So mine is, it's one of those like guilty pleasures, and guilty because I often take too long to get to a game that's amazing, and then I get to go across it and it's been patched up the wazoo or whatever. This time, it's not been too long, but several months ago they released Resident Evil 4's remake, and then there's a VR mode with that you can download as like separate DLC. But I saw it on a recent sale. It was originally like $54 or something like that. I got it for $20.
Wow.
And like this VR4 remake, which has this VR mode on PSVR 2, having originally played the Wii version of Resident Evil 4, and then more recently the kind of supreme, really well done, way over marketed Quest port, I thought, as a guy who doesn't replay games and definitely doesn't play them over and over again or whatever, I was really apprehensive that I would not get a kick out of this and I'd be wasting my $20. I was wrong. I was feckin' wrong. So
Hey.
perhaps some of the most shocking, breath-stealing moments that I've had in the last year in VR were in dealing with just common villagers who had pitchforks and old angry grandmas who were like, give me stink eye. Like the place and the way, like usually if you're in a VR game, you can deal with people coming at you. You're like, no problem. I've got this. I fling my sword or whatever. Like you don't feel attacked. God, you feel attacked in this. Like the old ladies, they'll lunge at you with a pitchfork and keep coming. And you're like, holy shit. Like literally I had to, physically take some steps back because I was so immersed in the kind of experience there.
Sit down,
So this is my
Belinda.
shout. Yeah. I mean, don't worry. I gave it to the grandmas. So
You don't have a lot of people in VR coming at you with like knife. Like it's mostly guns. You know what I mean? People are shooting at you, but you don't see a lot of people coming at you, NPCs with like knives or sharp, pointy objects that make you want to physically flinch.
or in this case, chainsaws. And goddamn, the chainsaw guy is dramatic. And it's not that he's like huge or whatever. He looks insane and he's coming at you relentlessly with a chainsaw. You're climbing, smashing through windows and clambering over rooftops and stuff. And this guy's coming at you with his buzzing chainsaw. The whole village is pissed off at you. It's insane. So anyway, but it's not just that. Like this remake, it felt like I was playing a fresh game. Like I was familiar with the skeleton of the story. It's been a couple of years or whatever, but it really did feel fresh to me. And the environments are meticulous. Like at the same grade of level of detail as like RE7 and RE8. It's really great. And when people were talking about this so highly, and I saw a few people call it like Game of the Year and stuff, even though it was released, December or late November last year, I was like, yeah, right. All right, come on. It's just Resident Evil fans giving it extra fluff. No way. This is the third awesome Sony like Resident Evil title, and it stands on its own. The only thing that I would say about it that's still this cumbersome nightmare is actually just realizing that it's not just a thing in the base download. You have to go locate on the page a VR mode DLC, download it separately. Why they don't just flood that into the already 60 gigabyte download? Like an extra 3 is not going to kill a flat gamer. Just give them the extra, give them the extra content or whatever, and let us take it as well. That's the only thing. That's my only gripe. But otherwise, it's excellent. And trending behind. I've been trending behind on several great like VR games. I still haven't played the Horizon title because I'm just waiting on a sale. I'm cheap. I'm a cheap ass guy when it comes to my games. But it's just not fair how good some of this stuff is. And so that one, if it's still on sale, please pick it up. It's great. RE4 remake on PSVR 2. But that in and of itself is where I kick back and I laugh at how brilliant it is to play these kinds of games because it's just as rich as those other RE titles. And I don't know, I kind of felt like just so excited and about how good damn fun it was. But this is something that to me is talking about PSVR 2 more than anything. Because I see people giving shtick to PSVR 2 for not having a content library. And I just don't get it. Not once have I regretted jumping into that, paying the money for it. And to me, it's been a lovely wave of like really high quality content. And so if you want full fat VR stuff, to me, PSVR 2 is still the consistently good time maker. It's such a good game. So yeah, I'll be doing more of that for sure in weeks to come. I've got some other things to take care of, like this weekend I'll be doing some racing and things, but I thought I'd give that a shout because it's been a couple of months out there, had a big splash. That's RE4. And speaking of shout outs, I did want to also give a quick shout to PSVR Gamescast Live, which is a frequent broadcast that's staged on Brian Paul's Without Parole channel. And for those who haven't caught it before, he recently renamed, originally was PSVR Without Parole, then PSVR 2, and now it's just Without Parole. It went through kind of a rebranding recently. They recently put a great gamercast covering this new horror game called Madison recently. But I think that team really sets the bar for like PSVR 2 coverage, like in its own silo. And I was a little surprised when they said that they all got quests recently. So I wonder if Meta's had a hand in that, and curious about where that's all going to go, because and this was the decision we made with the podcast years ago, right? That we would be across multiple different headsets and kind of, uniform across our coverage. But I do really like the kind of single thread that Brian, AJ, Miles, and Wes do with that cast. So I thought I'd just give them a shout out, and I hope they keep, the kind of independent single platform. There's not really another show like it out there. So that was just a quick shout out I wanted to give to a show that I really enjoy, separate to obviously this cast. Do you guys have any shout outs you want to maybe give out there? Anyone you think deserves some praise?
My mom.
Your mom?
Yeah, I'd like to thank her. Maybe she's listening.
I'm always behind it on these episodes, so even though I love them, I haven't been watching as much. But just the Between Reality guys, like there's this, I mean, they do more than Between Realities now. I don't know how many podcasts like they're a part of now, but the OG, Between Realities before the spin-offs that they did for, like, I think they have one for Impact now, and like they're part of other people's. I don't know how they do it.
They're between, on top, and under.
Yeah, there we go. Behind of, in front of, giggity.
Full cake of reality. Yeah, sounds good. No, they're great. That was my, I don't know, a year ago, 2 years ago, man. I was so into BR. I keep missing them now. So I don't know. I need to catch up with that stuff. BR, great team. Okay, well, it's probably a good time for me to tell you about one other shout out, which is our sponsor for today's show. So Kluge Interactive bring us an energetic music rhythm game called Synth Riders. And they're sponsoring the show today. Having recently released a brand new 80s music pack in DLC, they're keeping us well fed with tunage. We spoke about that last podcast, so today I've got something a little bit more. FReality listeners can get 20% off the Quest version using code FReality69, 8CF6. Very funny code.
It's
on the MetaQuest store, as Adam says, in the description, so you don't have to remember it. There's also a duet that started May 3rd on both Meta and Steam stores. So pick up a bundle, what they're calling the Synthabout bundle, coupling Synth Riders with Walkabout Mini Golf, and fantastic other game. And that grants 20% off both base games. Both games are DLC heavy, so that's a nice marriage to kind of get into and start your wallet to bleed. Finally, there's a Quest 3 giveaway campaign via Gleam. And we've got a link for you to try and win yourself an upgrade to the market-dominating standalone headset. So big thanks again to Synth Riders for sponsoring today's show. And kudos to all the hardworking tune hunters over there at Kluge Interactive. Please keep us grooving. That DLC I mentioned, by the way, is the 80s mixtape side A. That's what Rowdy's been showing off on screen. And it's great to groove to Take Me On and others 80s classics. $8 for 5 tracks. That's a sweet spot. And so with that, it's on to our news. Okay. First up today, we have chest-bursting alien facehuggers and green tea ice cream on order. I'm just kidding. Hold the ice cream. Today we're going to be talking about the first, in heavy air quotes, built for VR Alien IP game. Alien Rogue Incursion is being brought by the studio behind Synth Riders, Battle Wake, Westworld Awakening, Electronauts, Creed, and who can forget Raw Data. I think you were a Raw Data fan. Were you, Rowdy?
Oh yeah, yeah. I still have the shirt.
Oh, you
Raw
have the
Data
shirt. Oh,
yeah,
dude.
Because the funny thing is, because I work in data, a lot of people come up to me and say, "Oh, that's such an awesome shirt!" Like, I'm like, yeah, but nobody knows that's actually from a game, in my industry at least. So I can work in the two industries that I'm passionate about. How cool is that?
That is amazing. I love that. But like the pedigree that Survios has is largely in arcade, like location-based sense of the word. I'm going to call them a B-grade VR title studio because that might be a little bit harsh, but I feel like we've yet to see Survios truly hit the mark and ace the title yet. They've done loads. They've certainly got the time put in. They're one of the originals. And the question is, could this be the one with the Alien IP? Judging from the trailer alone, if you can call that a trailer, we're in for an equally arcade-style vibe here. We've got just a splash of alien-flavored iced tea for you today in the form of an animated JPEG. I was not a big fan of this trailer. Again, heavy air quotes. I was personally quite disappointed in the moving picture style release and would have preferred just a blog post or a tweet, which they did as well. But like, if you're releasing, a new game, I feel like you've got to come in with at least some CGI, better yet, some gameplay.
At least screenshots. I don't think there's even any
nothing.
screenshots. Look at our logos. Ooh.
Yeah, the funniest part is like on the website, it has this like, alien incursion, like this cool picture in the background, and then like in big bold, like watch the announcement teaser. But there's like
Same
nothing
thing.
to be shown. Like it's like exactly the same thing, and then like
It's
a bunch of
an
text.
animator. It's just an animator cutting it into pieces and loading it into a timeline.
You want to see our website animated? Here you go.
Exactly. That's what happened to me. I saw the tweets and I was like, okay. And I went to the website and saw the video. I was like, that's not a trailer, guys. So that aside, right? What we can see here, leave the alien up there, Rowdy, if you can. What we can see there, dare I say it, is a friendly looking xenomorph. He's in downward dog style pose. His puppy paws kind of look inviting. And to me, this kind of looks like an alien themed kids amusement park ride. There's got that lone little silhouette of that dude, and you've got this thing there. I mean, fair enough, right? That lone soldier has a gun protruding, or at least I hope it's a gun. And the alien itself is completely clear of any acid or goo. So I don't know, this guy's had a shower and maybe even a blow dry. But yeah, I think we're in for some.
Imagine that it's indeed like an alien VR amusement park. Like people would lose their mind, I think.
The bar's been set very high. It really, really has. I mean, so that's the problem. That's what Survios is up against. And they've been down this before, like with Battle Wake. When Battle Wake came out, Adam, remind me of the seafaring flat game by Microsoft.
Oh, Sea of Thieves?
Sea of Thieves.
Yeah.
That was the bar. And Survios came halfway to that bar. They did not come with Battle Wake to meet the expectations.
Game. That was a terrible game.
It was...
No, that was a horrible game.
I forgot they made that. It seemed like an indie thing.
Yeah.
That was just terrible.
They really tried. They really tried and it missed the mark. And this is what I see with Survios is they just keep experimenting and missing the mark. Not as poorly as some studios, like the Strife devs, for example. But the one thing I would say about Survios is we have seen them effectively create immersive, ominous environments. Like we were saying, Rowdy. We saw it in Raw Data. Adam, have you experienced Raw Data?
Yeah, long time ago.
Old one, right? Yeah, okay.
Co-op fun.
Yeah, super.
They have done really cool things. I thought Sprint Vector was a very cool kind of concept.
I think it's their best.
That was by them.
I think their best one was actually their IP that they took from Westworld.
Westworld?
Yeah, the Westworld Awakening one. Really high quality. That's where I think that Survios showed like the potential they have as a studio. I mean, Raw Data, of course, when it came out, I thought was revolutionary. Since then it has kind of like maybe fallen off. Creed, I thought was a really good game as well. Yeah. So they clearly know how to make VR games, and I think they were one of the first studios to hit the $1 million mark. So They are very established in the way that they do VR, but they have had indeed several really, and I think Battle Wake is for me one of the worst ones they've made. That was a horrible game. Yeah,
I think in terms of, now it's not a game. I would have said that
Yeah.
Electronauts is fun. It's cool to groove with loops, but it's like after 30 minutes, if you're not in there to actually produce something, it's got the least sticking and staying power. Creed, I personally didn't like Creed, but it was a very well-made game. But there were some design choices like the ghosting of the fist, and there's this weird stuff with the punch up that didn't work for me. But I think they could do it. There's some limitations here though. So one of the things about Survios in particular is in raw data, right? We saw some of the best Android terror moments that we've ever had in VR. It's still some of those moments where those bots are crawling at you. You're like, I mean, they stick with me. I don't know about you guys, but like Rowdy, what you said, Westworld
was
we saw bad robots again.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
They killed it. So they did bad bots the second time.
Yeah.
Now, seeing that we saw naughty androids in Alien Isolation, which is the bar for them to meet, they have an opportunity here. It could be playing to their strengths, if not just aliens, if they bring the androids in too.
Like a synth only game, because but they need to get the Xenomorphs animations right, because I there's so much about them that cause dread, but I don't know. Maybe because it's on Steam and PSVR 2, I kind of have slightly more hopes than if it were only on Quest, and then I'd be like, oh yeah, that alien looks kind of questy, doesn't it? But
the thing is, I just looked at their Wikipedia, and they released raw data in 2016, and then between 2016 and basically 2021, which was Big Rumble Boxing Creed Champions, which I'm assuming is like it's a flat screen game actually. It's not even a VR game. So May 20th was Puzzle Bubby VR, Vacation Odyssey.
Puzzle Bubble. Yeah.
Yeah, you know it. Okay, so between May 20th of 2021 and June 6, 2016, they released 7 games. A lot of games. So this to me feels a little bit like, they have a formula, they want to apply, push out games really quickly, which back then worked really well for virtual reality because it was like, there was not a lot of content, didn't have to be deep. And they done that. But then since 2021, they have not released a single game, which to me is a good sign because they realize, the bar of VR has been raised. We can't be using the same formula anymore. We need to, come up with maybe a new kind of strategy for making something. And that, if that is then translated into Alien Rogue Incursion, I think that's a good sign because that means that maybe they've been thinking about developing this game already for a while.
Hope so.
It's been in production maybe. The trailer doesn't really say that it has been in production for a while. But they haven't been sitting still then at least. Like, because I thought they had fallen off the radar and it was kind of done and over for them. And
I felt, because most studios, just like we saw with First Contact Entertainment, right? Most VR studios get 2 misses. 1 miss and they can stay alive. 2 misses and they're dead. And Adam, I think you were saying before, like a lot of VR games the cost of a VR game is $1 million, to make a VR game. It's not $25K or whatever. I mean, maybe for an indie project that's built on some prefabs, but yeah, games are expensive. And making a trip there while still paying your employees, not easy. Yeah. So something that I wanted to kind of focus on here is they were claiming, okay, this is the first kind of VR alien IP. Not quite correct. Not quite correct, right? I've been through Alien Isolation. A lot of people have. But one of the things that I wanted to dispute, because I heard it being talked about on a different podcast, was Alien Isolation, when it launched, had I'll call it officially unofficial VR mode. And I think a lot of people don't know this.
Yeah, it was not native, right?
It was native out of the gates. Later, a couple years later, Nibray's mother VR mod came and kind of stole the show. But initially, like the version that I played for 2 years, involving my cat, because she liked to nuzzle my face, and I thought that was a xenomorph coming for me. But I would, and I've got a video of this, Rowdy, you can run it. The Alien Isolation was intense. it felt double or triple A. Certainly for a third of the game, you felt completely naked and exposed to this alien. It would hunt you, even when it was off down the hallway. It would come thundering back and pull you out of a locker. Like, I remember screaming my lungs out, getting pulled out from under a hospital gurney. Like, you felt so exposed until later on, when the game gives you weapons and guns and feels like kind of a Jedi Knight style thing where, oh, I've got the ammunition now. I'm not scared of the bad thing anymore. So I think what Survios need to do is they need to make you feel exposed. Adam, you're right. But some of the things that don't work well on Quest platform, given it's a mobile chipset so much, is like shadows and darkness in the lighting and just fluid animations. Like, those things will be challenges. And my concern a little bit here is because this is multi-platform coming out for PSVR 2 for Quest, I believe this is going to be a Quest 3 exclusive as well. Like, you won't be able to play it on a Quest 2, is what I was reading. So these titles, sometimes a studio will focus on the breadwinner, and they'll focus on the Quest build, and they'll say, yeah, we don't need the better fidelity. Like what they did with Asgard's Wrath 2, right? PCVR players, forget them. We're just going to do the Quest build, and then you can have a port of it on PSVR 2. So I don't know what way Survios is going to turn with this one. That would be my concern. I want to see PCVR and PSVR 2 versions that are full fat, like full fidelity.
Exactly.
That's what I want.
That they don't make it Alien Isolation style, because people are just going to naturally compare. I mean, yes, you still need that sense of dread, obviously, but I almost hope it's kind of more catering to what they're good at, arcadey. So like what's the co-op game, the really good one?
Ghostbusters. Don't say Ghostbusters.
No, it's an aliens game. It's a flat game. It's like 4-player co-op where you go through all the, like, it's still creepy, but it's more actiony. Fireteam Elite, right?
Fireteam, I think.
So kind of more like that, where you're playing more as like soldiery person going through the alien maps versus, and there's still a sense of dread. I think they still did a good job there, but maybe not so much, because people are just going to compare it to Alien Isolation otherwise. You know what I mean? And I don't know if it's going to.
Yeah. My biggest concern, and it's funny because that's what I was thinking about this game, and then I went looking it up and I was like, oh no, it's a single player game. Because I thought multiplayer, particularly Alien vs. Predator 2, back in the day, I had amazing moments playing the alien, being in the vent, going and killing someone, being the predator, right? Like, an Alien vs. Predator IP done with multiplayer and VR could be incredible. I still think it's probably too new for something that big IP-wise to splash and actually make the money. But yeah, I don't know. If they're going for Alien and they're going in VR, I think it's got to be scary. I think it's got to feel intense. I don't think it can go too arcade.
I agree. Yeah, like,
Single players,
you could have gone fun shooty if you were multiplayer, but it's not like fun shooty as in like, oh, things are happy, but it's more just like you're appreciating the carnage versus you're being scared. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
more
a bunch of aliens are charging at you and you've got your big minigun and you're just like, yeah, like one of those moments. But yeah, if it's single player, I think it has to have that dread more.
We got to be careful though, because like, again, we've been through that before in VR, which is the wave shooter, right? We've seen so many of those. We've grown past that.
It doesn't work anymore. Like,
it's got to be more cinematic. It's got to be more.
Then it would be like an old Survios title, right? If they do something like that, and I just don't think that formula works anymore. Like today, like it's just gonna fall off the radar.
Yeah, it's a tough play. It's a tough play because that IP is so hard to live up to the standard of. That's a high bar, you know. Anyway, let's see how Survios get on with it. So again, that was Rogue Incursion.
Flamethrower. That bare minimum flamethrower.
And flamethrowers are hard. Good. That's, again, on Quest, a flamethrower, volumetric flame.
It's not square.
Could be rough. So I don't know. My guess is we're gonna end up with another B title from Survios. But that's my guess.
I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah. Hey, Britt, I hope it has androids, because you guys do that very well. That's right. And PSVR 2 is definitely where I'm going to try to play it, because that OLED screen.
They should just make the game with robots, and at the final stage they hire like a designer to like replace like the robot with an alien. Magic title.
Upright bipedal alien.
They can also go tongue in cheek. I mean, the thing is, what we saw recently. I was talking about Ghostbusters, right? If this was a multiplayer title, like if you do that, you have to hit that kind of Left 4 Dead or that like co-op vibe very well, and then you could go for like the second film, Aliens. You could go for a lot of the kind of 80s style stuff from lifted out of that. But anyway, we all want a good Aliens title. So Servios, my biggest concern actually is that they've selected a holiday release date. That's my biggest concern because I don't want them releasing it prematurely now that they've committed to that. So I implore you not to rush it for the holidays, because what that leads to is devs who've worked their asses off all year, then getting pulled into the studio to do dev work on fixes, patches, and all that kind of stuff over the holidays, heading into the new year with like limping sales. Like I could just foresee this bad holiday for the devs behind this, and that's not what they need. So I would say it's okay you've targeted the holidays. It's a little dangerous to do that, getting people's hopes up or whatever. But if you have to pull the ripcord in October or November, do it. Release in January, release in February, whatever. You'll have no competition at that point. But do not give us a half-baked game, and do not slay your developers in the process. Anyway, that's my little 2 cents. So
Agree.
with that, on to the next one. The next one isn't far off either in terms of big IP. This is going to be Batman Arkham Shadow. This is a Quest 3 exclusive and stated as such, which is a mite surprising that after all these promotions about Quest 2 hardware, and that one actually being the breadwinner at the minute for Meta, getting the most support, the base of their current VR headset pyramid. Well, we have Sony and Meta going head-to-head again, as was the case some years back with Rift and PSVR 1, where we originally had Batman Arkham VR, which was a staple in 2016. Now we've got Arkham Shadow, which is only going to release on Quest 3. Now, before going to the specifics of the game itself, the studio behind this is perhaps the most exciting part. Camouflage and Oculus Studios have independently both made incredible titles. Early on, there was a game that Camouflage launched called Republique, in the style of Metal Gear Solid, that style of gameplay. And it struck you into a dystopian universe. You had to help this gal through security cameras, almost as like a hacker across this 5-chapter adventure. It was long, well written, could even be played in an Oculus Go, one of my favorites back in the day. And then a bit later, we got Marvel's Iron Man VR in 2020, which frankly speaking, was a pure piece of software magic. That launched as an exclusive on PSVR at the time and turned what was a front-facing only camera setup, for anyone who had a PSVR 1, you'll know the pain that caused, into a non-event for the very first time. You could spin around like Cinderella. You could fly like Superman. And it was just an awesome execution of the mission statement. And Camouflage delivered expertly in that space. Much like my remark about Vecna and Stranger Things last week or 2 weeks ago. It brought this evil grin to my face, having played titles like Megaton Rainfall, the promise of being able to slay citizens on the planet by the hundreds. But aside from Iron Man and Republique, we now have a new Batman title, right? So what do we have here? This trailer that we've got shows a single rat running along Gotham City buildings and diving into drain pipes. The video ends with Batman uniting with what appears to be about 500 rats in a dark alleyway. I gotta say, I love the effects that they've done for the iconography in the game. They've got this underlit red tinge effect of the logo. And through the trailer, you feel this kind of murky depression and waterlogged creatures of the night pouring out in droves. So, frankly speaking, with the people behind it, this one actually is starting to look like a winner. It is Quest 3 bound, right? So you've got that mobile chipset. We've talked about shadows, and in this case, rain effects, right? And one thing I learned while preparing for today's show, what do you call this many rats? Adam, do you know? Curious.
Ratnado?
Not quite. Ratnado. That might even be better than the real thing. Rowdy, you want to hazard a guess?
No
right.
no idea.
A mischief of rats. So a large swarm of rats.
I've heard about that before from that one game. I think a Plague's Tale, or how was it called?
Oh yeah, the depressing one.
Yeah. I think that there this mentions I
So there
didn't
you go.
know it, but it rings a bell.
You've learned something there today, folks.
Yeah.
But what do you both think about this? I mean, did you either or both play the original Batman title, Batman Arkham VR?
I
Yes.
didn't, but I need to.
It's good. So Rowdy, what do you remember about that game?
I mean,
The
it
original.
wasn't really a game, right? It was more like a demo of like showcasing how a Batman game would
Okay.
look like.
Yeah, it was about an hour long, I think. It wasn't
Yeah.
very long. It was maybe 45 minutes if I remember my time with it.
Yeah.
You got to
It
don
looked-
the cowl, see his cave,
Yeah.
see his mansion, right?
It
So
looked really cool. I remember that.
Right.
But yeah, that was.
it was a staple in 2016 by
Yeah.
2016 standards. But now that we're in 2024,
But everything in 2016 looked cool because it was like, imagine if this was a full game. You know?
bunch of fucking promises, yeah.
Yeah.
But this one, yeah. So, I don't know. So we're gonna get a Batman game exclusive to Quest 3, running on this mobile chipset, which means Rowdy can't play it.
It's funny that like I can appreciate it more when you compare it to the Alien trailer, which is like
Yeah.
normally, I'm like, oh, cinematics kind of wish we could see more, but at least we see something other than the logo animated. It's like
Yeah, it's
yay,
again
but then,
like
I
we-
wonder if we're gonna
We
like
again
I
don't
wonder if
see
we're
any
gonna see when the
gameplay,
game
right?
comes out.
Yeah,
And then it's like
exactly.
gameplay next to the trailer, and you're like, look
There-
at the rain in the trailer
I-
compared to the game.
So there is gameplay coming. I think it's June 7th. So they've promised they are going to show it. Okay. So that's coming. So that's good. I think that's at I'm trying to remember the guy. Anyway, look on the internet,
Batman.
June 7th.
I think actually
Arkham
there's a
Shadow.
little bit of gameplay here. Yeah, I found it.
Oh, no.
Uh-huh. Sure. Yeah. What's Rowdy going to show us? Yeah, this is lovely.
That #1 score.
There we go. Oh man, this looks amazing.
Quest 3 graphics.
Wow, look at the graphics. Wow. This is so great, Rowdy. Oh my god. So
I
he's
do
showing
hope
us.
there is vehicle stuff though. Now that you're posting,
Yeah,
it in
you're
your-
giving
in
ideas to the
username,
dev
that'd be
team.
Cool.
That is rad. I love that. Batmobile with a machine gun
Temper your expectations.
in Atari graphics. That was beautiful. God, you got me good with that one, Rowdy. Yeah, okay. All right, folks. Anything else to say about Batman?
Cool website though. Like I haven't shown it yet, but like I do like the website they put up. I don't know. I like the way it looks. Cool
Well,
logo.
we got Batman. Yeah, I don't know. The whole rats thing is neat. The thing I like about camouflage actually is they feel like an art house because you're not going to camouflage/bat. You're just going to camouflage.com, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, you know what that tells me? We're gonna back our entire company behind this. We're gonna show you this. This is our art. Judge us by this, right? That's what that says to me. And so it's not just a project. It's like, this is us. And I love when a studio does that. They show
Take
confidence.
ownership.
Yeah, they take ownership and they're like, we are behind this. Everyone's on this ship and we're sailing it. And so I have so much faith. They haven't machine gun titles out like Servios, but what they've brought us has been consistently awesome for the platform it was designed for. They know their constraints and they give us something that matters. So looking forward to that one. Now we can't really talk about games without me singing Amy Winehouse's "They Tried to Send Me to Rehab" and then referring to my currently favorite flat game. So chat, Adam and Rowdy have tried to send me for an intervention, and this is clearly the first step of the program. I'm an addict from my little den here in Canada, and I've been diving so much that I'm nearly a PADI certified scuba diver. I've been doing all I can for managed democracy with Helldivers 2, and I'm not ashamed of that, but I probably should be in front of this particular audience because I've clocked 150 hours in like 2 months with that game. But give me a minute, guys. Suspend your disbelief, because you'll remember a particular cinematics creator who we showcased very early on in his career, Demo Akuro, and he's done a crossover. So I say that my 150 hours were totally just related. Please buy my lies, please, pretty please. So we're going to show off his latest teaser trailer, which showcases a really interesting a really interesting combination. So Demo has taken Blade and Sorcery to recreate scenes as if it was Helldivers, in VR. For those not familiar with Helldivers, it takes place on alien planets where you're defending either from Terminids, these alien bugs, or automatons that look like Terminators, right? And so you're here with a band of usually 3 others, so 4 soldiers kind of on the face of the planet, defending from wave after wave of overwhelming chaos. So it's a great game, beautiful, gorgeous environments, and it's just incredible to think that someone can set that same kind of mood through Blade and Sorcery in this way. And this trailer is actually just a precursor. So what's coming next is like a 3 to 5 minute short that's coming from Demo. He's done a bunch of other great works in the past. And people in the comments are so excited about this, they're asking and like anticipating a feature-length film. So, because Helldivers has had a lot of attention recently. Anyway, I think he struck the mood very, very well, in particular that last kind of chaotic scene. And so great job, Demo. Keep going, mate. And anytime you want a wingman, I've got your back. Although, I don't know, guys, does that like void my rehab program? Is that how that works?
No,
Yes.
you mentioned Demo. Like I've been so proud of him because he's also one of the 2 guys on the Live Productions team that's working on trailers and stuff. And there's stuff I really wish I could say, but I can't quite say yet because we have to wait for official announcements on things. But
Nice.
yeah, he and Toge have been killing it. So it's nice to see that he's still, I'm happy he can still do the things that he wants to do because their schedule is nuts right now.
Yeah.
Okay, because they're so good, and he's been learning a lot about even doing stuff in like Unity and just going really hardcore into all of this production stuff. So he's been doing such a great job. So proud of him, and good to see him like grow. His experience and everything.
It's amazing to see someone take their talent, just double down on it, and just carve their niche, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we saw it with a few people. We've seen it with like Sadly It's Bradley. Like you said, we saw it with Toge. Just great. It's absolutely fantastic seeing it. But Demo's on a mission, and I don't see anyone competing in that space right now. No one else even close. So to all the other Helldivers out there, I also wanted to touch on a little bit of uproar we had in the last couple of days, which I had a little tickled giggle at. A new requirement for PC owners of Helldivers 2 is coming in the form of a mandatory tieback to a PSN account. So anyone who bought on Steam will now have to set up, create, and link to a free Sony PlayStation Network account. Apparently there are network rights which didn't iron themselves out, and as such, Sony, in order to control and cut your ties if you misbehave, are now linking this to a mandatory PSN account and tying your Steam copy to that. Oh, players are not liking this, I think. There's been a lot of kickback on socials, and not just that. This game has been growing in terms of its review opinion. People are loving it, and it just got review bombed all to hell. And I mean that. And I think there's a picture I sent you, Rowdy, that shows it, but players are not happy. They've dragged it down to a net sum of like a mixed rating, and I think it's overwhelmingly negative or something equivalent to that at the moment on Steam. So you can understand people are pissed. It looks like a technical conundrum, I will say, in terms of how they ensure that their players are abiding by Sony's prerequisites, which weren't enforced at launch, but now are being washed upon players. So for other PC players like myself, hold fast. If you hate Sony, just set up an account and tie yourself down. What I don't know is if people own this on multiple platforms, like if you own a PS5 and have that version, and then you have a Steam version as well, I wonder if it still allows you to connect it back. And if it does, if you are misbehaving, does it nuke you on both accounts? I assume it would.
Oh God.
So it's kind of like what we
Yeah.
had with the old meta tie-in with the Facebook accounts and Quest, where they were like, oh, you've been bad on Gorilla Tag? Well, goodbye Facebook account. There goes your 10, 20 years worth of pictures and all of that. Like, we heard some pretty traumatic stories. So there you go.
I mean, it's selfish
So
to
someone
say, but like
posted
this.
this video here, like it's like a little video. I'm gonna mute it though.
Oh, there at the intro.
I don't know if you can see it.
That's good. That's from the intro. Yeah, exactly. Keep running it. It's good. It's amazing.
I love what people make sometimes. It's the
Oh
worst
my
shit,
God.
but I love it.
That's-
But yeah, I mean, it's selfish to say that like I'm in a country where yes, I could still. This doesn't really affect me because I can just sign into my PlayStation account, and it's annoying for sure. But I wonder because the people seem to be mostly upset about like, oh, you can't have a PlayStation account in a couple countries, but I don't know how many
Oh,
people
they get
play
cut off.
Helldivers in these other countries or what the scope is exactly to have
Even
a
one is
stronger opinion.
too many to be
Yeah,
take this away from the oh my lord.
that's true,
If
especially
someone
if you
took my
bought it.
Helldivers away, I would be raging because it's my favorite game of the year in the Flatland at the moment. But
I wonder if
thanks.
though if like Sony was like, oh, this game actually is successful. Oh, we have to start pressing them to, get the stuff that we agreed to. Like, I wonder if Sony just had doubts about them in the beginning, and that's why suddenly they're like, I don't know. I'm just pulling stuff out my
It's
ass. I
weird,
have no
right?
idea.
Yeah, I don't know. It's a bit odd. I wouldn't be surprised that this kind of technicality happens on occasion. Like you said, you're not sure how big a deal it's going to be out the gates, and they're like, well, I'll give you a grace period. If you can't sort it by then we've got to enforce. So I'm not terribly worried. The studio has been incredibly reactive. Great content lineup so far. The only thing I of course keep asking for is let's get a VR mode, please. Thanks, team. So with that, let's move on to an indie dev spotlight. We're going to lighten the mood up again. Let's show off some cool pool. In this case, you're going to get to see Hayden Jackson, a developer, their take on both Apple and Meta implementations with the zone attack on hand occlusion. So, for those who don't know what hand occlusion is, it means when your hand is able to block content that's not really there, virtual content that's overlain on your environment. His tweets hit more than 50K views and portrays an accurate, sharply cut, floating hand execution done on Quest. Showcased in this little tweet is his game, 3D Pool, described as billiards in 3D. If you imagine a pool table as a kind of a cubic or rectangular volume with the holes on each of the corners, and then billiard balls just floating in space. You use your hands with hand-controlled motion to act as the pool cue to basically draw back with the amount of power you want to strike. And it's available on App Lab for free. So
Geek out about this stuff, like, because it's when you're playing something and your hand should be behind an object, but it's not. That just totally kills my immersion. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. This is all flat and make believe, and I've got a headset on my head. What am I doing with my life?
I'm telling you,
But-
they're just slowly preparing for this massive real-time strategy game to do all of this stuff in practice.
that would be cool. Even though I'm not an RTS person, I would if they had some kind of like a mixed reality setup. Like you said,
Yeah.
you can, take your troops or, if you
God.
have some kind of control panel somewhere, like that'd be super cool. But if your hand's always like in front when you're trying to
Yeah.
like grab a unit or something, I don't know. It's just like, we're
It's-
close.
it's
But-
one of those problems that feels like a very today problem that is gone tomorrow. Like someone's going to work this out. Some human's going to work this out and it'll no longer be an issue. But like for today, you're like, God, why? It looks simple and it's technically very complicated. This is a cool solution here.
Yeah,
I
very
actually got
nice,
to test
yeah.
this earlier today, so I did have a go with it. It was only out like 5 days ago, but I'll say that in contrast to the tweet, I found the hand overlay opacity to be about maybe 40%, so I could definitely see my hands, but I was mostly seeing through them. So it's a bit different to the kind of stark standoff nature. So I'm probably missing a setting or something, but I couldn't really work it out. I'm not the best with hand controls. Game itself worked well, pool physics, all that kind of stuff. Seemed pretty neat. Early, but probably worth it if you want to try it out. I don't think you'd spend more than 10 minutes in there, honestly. But Hayden's work is a nice start in the direction of proper hand occlusion when objects can be occluded or blocked by your own inbuilt meaty game controllers, right? So for interested developers out there wondering, hey, how did this magic happen? Well, he achieved this by using the hand tracking driven hand mesh that's available through Meta's building blocks in Unity. He set the material to be both transparent and to render before other geometry in the scene, and then invisibly draw the hand mesh to the depth buffer. And that was how that trick worked. In case any of you
I want
nerds there want to know.
like furniture. Aren't they working on stuff for physical, like furniture and stuff too eventually? So say you have like an arcade machine, but you hide behind your couch, you'll be able to see the arcade machine like through the couch still. But now that Meta's got their furniture labeling and stuff and cameras on the Quest 3, who knows? Maybe we'll eventually get that kind of stuff with things too. I don't know. There's crazy stuff out there. We've
My
seen some videos.
my hope, along with their progress with vision, is that the early Quest 3 and Quest 2 furniture mapping that we're doing right now is only to serve it's a means to an end. I think all we're doing right now is training their knowledge base of what people's furniture, plants, pictures, and all that look like, so that we reach a state where we don't have to map it. It knows what it is with a high confidence, and it can be seamless so that it knows what your stuff is. You've already mapped it. You've already actually furnished them with this data. It's kind of similar track to what we saw Google do back in the day. Like, they know where you're going. They know what to advertise to you. So they're not they're not overdoing it. They struck the balance right. And right now we're just flooding Meta with free oil in that respect to let them know
Actually,
what
I
our scene
did
is
see
like.
that work because when I have like I use my Quest in multiple rooms, and so now that there's the profiles and stuff, that helps. But I had to start over from scratch. Scanned this room, it was already automatically able to pick up my table, a chair, and there was like one
Really?
other thing. And I was like, I mean, I had mapped those out a long time ago, but it had lost all that data once, the
Huh.
space updates came out. And I was like, oh, well, I mean, it didn't map out everything. So there were some things that I still had to do myself, but it also was able to recognize the door and my windows. It automatically had traced those out. So I was like, oh, that takes out a couple steps,
Oh.
but it's also a little creepy, but
Yeah, I was
mostly
going to say,
convenient.
I haven't seen that work for me in my setup yet. There has been one or two times where I thought the boundary had been cleared and there was an object, like a poster or a monitor, that was like popping through. And I'm like, how do you know to pop through? So maybe that's what that is, Adam. Maybe they're already starting to implement some of that.
I don't know if you
might-
remember that we talked about
good.
that segment anything model that they released. Like Meta released like a model specifically, an AI model a little while ago. That specialty is just segmentation on images.
Was it the video we saw?
I remember that. Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised that they're starting to implement that technology or those algorithms in whatever kind of device that they're creating or technology they're creating, to leverage that as well to try and do segmentation specifically in specific areas.
Cool. That's definitely coming. And again, I'm thinking, into the space of, smart glasses as well. But sticking with VR for now, for my next magic trick, we've got merged spaces. I caught this over on Tony or Scarred Ghost's Twitter. You'll know I Expect You to Die, and hence you may know the name Jesse Shell of Shell Games, a great game studio. Well, this video is a demo of a 4-user interaction at the corner of a room, usually a dead space with respect to VR. You wouldn't normally be facing into the corner of your room space. But in this case, what it is it's a dorm-style game of catch between 4 independently tracked spaces that are merged at the corner of a room, using that as an origin. The pass-through mechanics are in operation, so the TV on the wall isn't at risk, but this person can still play catch with their buddies through the walls. Really kind of cool, use of space here. And I also like the fact that it's quite ingenious how they're using the corner of a room. The only other time I've seen that is really when we had Spatial Ops use the corner of a room basically to map out the box that then would be your environment as a replacement of the Meta Guardian, because you had to disable the Meta Guardian to kind of get that to work. So that's pretty neat. I don't know. What do you think? Any games come to mind that you might want to play in this way?
I'm not like big games, but just social environments. Like if you wanted to meet with your friends in your home while you're faffing around trying to figure out what game to play, or just shooting the shit in the beginning. Like I could probably just be throwing stuff at people in their rooms, and that itself would just be fun while you're trying to wait for
Exactly.
someone to get their drink or come back or put their headset on. Like, I think this is cool, especially for just social implications. And I imagine someone might come up with something.
I think a
cool for
fishing
it.
game would be cool.
Oh, that
Oh,
would
yeah,
be cool.
Middle of the
Essentially,
corner would be the
you could
pool,
do
the pond.
Yeah.
a circular like
Sick.
pie-shaped pond in front of you, and you'd all be sitting there fishing. God
Ooh,
damn, Rowdy, that's great. And the
this is
thing
such
is,
cool implications, man.
this is
Like, I
shell
love it.
games. Shell games are number one, in my opinion, for let me feck about in VR and have it do the thing. Like if I want to take the little lighter and light a plant on fire and watch it burn,
Job Simulator's good too.
they let
The
you.
Alchemy Labs people, I think,
Alchemy are
to
good.
be
You're
fair,
right.
they're good at
Yeah,
that too. But yeah, this is so cool. Like, someone make something that we can actually use with this. It's awesome.
exactly. I love the idea though. Like if they brought back the equivalent of Oculus Rooms, but this kind of a feature, I agree. I think it's the perfect kind of startup. You get to see you get to like treat your own space, decorate it or whatever, and then show it off to your
Yeah,
friends, right? And it's like,
hell yeah.
oh, you're there at the corner of my room, and let's get together and we play a game. And so it
Show off your
sounds
rooms
great.
and stuff. Oh my god, you could even. There's just so much you could do with this. I don't know. Hurry up. Let's go. Let's do this thing.
And then you get the overlap with the mixed reality quotient for Meta on anchors, their anchoring system, like a poster you've hung on your wall that maybe is an asset you unlocked from a game. That idea that we used to have. Do you remember, Rowdy, in the Oculus ecosystem, where you would unlock a trophy and you could have it in your room and people could come and visit and look at it?
Yeah.
But there was never an easy way to kind of like break down the wall of, hey, just come see it. Like just see it while we're talking. But Adam, your idea of put this into social, like when we boot up our headsets, the room attached to me is always going to be my buddy. And oh, hey, my buddy's playing a game. And I can see he's playing a game or she's playing a game on the room next to me. Like you could almost be like almost being like in a virtual apartment block, but you're connected to those other people so that if they're online, you just see them playing a game in their
Oh, that would
virtual
be
space along
hilarious.
with their
You just see
posters.
them like their avatar just flailing around.
But it would feel very human, right? It would feel
Yeah.
connected, like you were living in a dorm together. And that's what really excites me about this concept.
I guess you could
So,
also, like, the room would change maybe based on the game that they're playing. Like, I don't know,
sure.
in the bare minimum, like the wallpapers would be like whatever game they're in, but you could really do a lot of crazy stuff with that. Like, that's so cool. Like, gosh, I love this kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's very it almost answers this question of like, how do I stay connected with other people who are really distant from me, but involved in and playing a game? And then like when I boot my headset up, because one of the big hooks that Steam does for me is when I start playing, they've done a good way to cluster. Oh, there's 4 of your friends playing, Age of Empires,
Mhm.
and then it just kind of baits you into that social dynamic. And once the social's there, you're done, right? You're playing, you're clocking hours, you're having a great time, and you're probably going to come back and buy more games to play with those people. So I think it works really well for the ecosystem. But it reminded me of like 4 old lads, playing catch like they did 20 years ago with their old college football buddies. Very much akin to that weird ad we got from Meta maybe a year ago. A little bit more, the Chuck E. Cheese style ad with the old robots. It just reminded me of like this kind of forlorn aftertaste after watching it, but really neat tech. And further down in those comments, there's a second video actually, Rowdy, that's like it. It's by Flathead Studios. They show a similar variant that they had achieved separately in multiplayer, mixed reality, with a detonating time bomb pufferfish. You're going to love this one, Adam. They call it Puff R fish, AR, the AR in the middle of the word. So pufferfish. And I'm going to let that one slide. I normally don't like those.
The
But
puns and the names.
but this is great.
Oh.
This is great. Not the fish. The fish isn't great. The fish, in fact, appears the pufferfish appears to have been modeled from like a blow-up sex doll or something. But aside from that,
The
this
concept
is
is
the
interesting,
concept
yeah.
is fun. But it's like, past the hacky sack, or in this case, hot potato, but with a pufferfish. So
Oh,
that's
that's see,
pufferfish.
I mean, yes, I feel like once developers, if Meta makes this kind of a tool set available to developers easily, like we're gonna see a lot of creative stuff. Maybe not. Oh, we're gonna see probably a lot of hot potato clones. I'm sure it'll be like, oh, this is like everyone's gonna be testing it out, and then they'll be publishing it, and it'll just be like everyone's just tossing something into each other's rooms until somebody comes up with something super creative, and then everyone will just clone that, like
Got it.
Gorilla Tag,
You
but
got it.
for this.
I just want to piss my friends off by being able to create and throw paper airplanes. And I want to fill their entire space up with paper airplanes. Like slowly, like they get physics and all that, and they'll just build up. So Rowdy's sitting there, but he's just like covered in paper airplanes.
Too bad
That's
this wasn't
everything.
PlayStation, because then you could get the head haptics going every time if you get the, hit someone's head
May
with the
the
paper
fourth be with
airplane, they
you.
could feel it.
Well, you could do the old classroom like blowgun,
Spitball.
the spitball. That would work.
Oh god.
All right,
I
well, let's
approve.
take us from VR games on into next gen AR. As reported by Upload VR, we got a glimpse at the future. And they picked up on an article on Android Central. Caitlin Kalinowski from Meta, who's now responsible for AR glasses hardware, made some really exciting comments. For those not familiar with Caitlin, she previously oversaw VR hardware divisions, including Rift, Touch, Go, Quest lineups. And Meta had been working on an AR project they name Orion, the Orion prototype. Caitlin gave these remarks about Meta's next-gen tech in the AR department, claiming she had the same "oh my god, wow" moment, I can't believe this, that the original Rift was for her. Meta's current CTO, Boz, noted, this might be the most advanced device we've ever produced as a species, but also noted these were built on a prohibitively expensive technology path, and then as such, we're not going to make it into a consumer-grade product. So just to separate these two, as I'll be mentioning two internal projects, this is the Orion prototype. This is the lofty, do everything we can to see the future project. The key to this, actually, is that it's based on silicon carbide waveguides, to some extent controlled actually for military purposes, but these waveguides can achieve a 70-degree diagonal field of view. Glass waveguides and more conventional headwear can only do 50 degrees, which is quite limiting if you consider modern headsets are somewhere in the range of 100, 110 degrees of field of view. Another piece of tech in here that I hadn't run across before, but I think is pretty neat, is LCOS, or liquid crystal on silicon.
Oh.
One of the characteristics of this special type of display, in contrast to, say, something like OLED or micro OLED displays, is that it rapidly switches light for display projection. And so today it's used in kind of very expensive projectors, and it allows for fantastic black levels. In essence, it's a shuttering, almost like you would have with like a Polaroid filter, where you've got a device that's like almost physically blocking the light from coming out. And it's a really interesting kind of like technical combination from the silicate layer forward. But we've got this kind of future potentially awesome tech. We've seen Meta has shown us some of their crazy VR and AR builds. They do these like leaks through their AR studios, Reality Labs. I like to talk about them, the FReality Labs. And now that we've spoken about some AR glasses that you can't get your hands on, I didn't want you to feel upset about that. So let's plug some of those old Ray-Bans that Adam and I are a fan of, because there's some more news in that department too. First off, they've been selling out. I think I was complaining about this last podcast, so it was very timely that Meta decided to drop an announcement.
Else is new. I feel like they're always selling out.
It's mad.
Maybe they have only like 3 in stock or something.
Well, apparently they've been a huge success. So Meta have added a bunch of new colorways, including one sporting the Ferrari logo for crazy money. It's like $500. $500 glasses is bad. But hundreds of different like custom frames and lenses combinations. They say that there's not that many variants. It's a few, but you can use the Ray-Ban Remix platform at rayban.com to kind of make it your own. Like pick the frames, pick the glasses, pick a better fit. And there's 2 new products in this. So it's the same base kind of technology, but there's now one that's kind of one, I'd say for the ladies, it's a rounder kind of look to the frame called the Skylar model. And there's also the headliner, one with a lower bridge. So for those with smaller noses, so that it rests more comfortably on the face. I personally found the large glasses were what worked best for me, Mr. Big Nose. And the cool thing now is you can be like Adam. You can benefit from the applied AI model that they were testing before in beta. That's now been rolled out, at least in the US and Canadian markets. And you can now buy these glasses in more markets globally, 15 or so. So that's it. Ray-ban.com if you're interested in picking up a pair ahead of summer.
How long do you think that Meta will remain the only one of like the big players in the market that will have a product like this.
Can't be long.
Well, there's more that are starting to come out with like Ray-Ban copies.
No,
they just
I
don't
mean
have
like
the AI in
I mean
it.
like the
But-
big players, Google, Apple,
Uh,
Amazon, because they're watching this as well. They see the success. Maybe Sony,
Yeah.
like I mean,
Yeah.
like those that make those smart devices, like you have the Amazon Echo in your home, you have an Apple device on your phone, you have a Google Home, you have whatever. It makes sense for these companies, considering the success of this particular device, to also bring out something like this on the market, right?
Amazon Echo glasses, just 2 pods stuck to your face. You know?
buy
At least
more
it's got
Tide Pods.
It's got stereo. No, my personal view on this is they can't afford to wait long, but this road is something that Meta's been working on for like 8 years. It's not quick to get this technology in small form factor. And
I don't know
I
about
think
that
Meta's-
because once it's out there, like I do think that a lot of the R&D work has been done, and sure,
It can be
part of that
cloned.
is proprietary, but
Yeah.
it's the roadmap is so much shorter, right? And because this is like very much
Correct.
more in the design aspect, because they partnered with Ray-Ban to cover that kind of thing, because this is something that people will wear because, you know, it doesn't look like you're wearing a giant headset. It's something that is comfortable, it's something you put on. It's not that, you know, clear that you're wearing a virtual reality device.
That's what I love about it.
Exactly,
and
but
a
a
lot
lot,
of
of these
people-
other companies do it as well. Apple does that, Google does that, Amazon does that. They create these like sleek kind of designs that fit in a household, or now maybe also fit on your face. So I'm just wondering, how
It takes
long
long.
is it still going to take for another player to jump on this and start competing in this market?
I know.
Not long. I'd like to see someone combine the AR glasses with like Meta Ray Bans, being able to take photos and videos and have AI in it. Because then I think we're even more a step closer to sort of a phone replacement. Except for the fact that you still need your phone to connect AR glasses to. For now, I don't know how
Exactly.
you could make something form factor in that way where it also acts as like a mini computer. But who knows? But I think,
It
like,
just needs an eSIM in the frame. It needs an eSIM in the frame of these glasses so it can connect to you're going to need the antenna equipment in there, and maybe that's not good to put against your head. I don't know. For me, I'll probably step past that one if that ever drops. As in, your glasses can connect, 5G to the local cellular tower and give you answers as quick as they can without having to
conspiracy theorists are gonna love this.
tether to the device, right? Well, yeah, and then it's tracking your position as well, right? So, and seeing what you're seeing and blah blah blah. So, but I love them. I really really like those glasses. I'd still own them if they hadn't cut my ear, and I am angling for getting a pair. I think that we're going to see them iterate. This is the one thing I would caveat: Meta iterate fast. So if you buy them, don't be upset if in a year's time there's another pair on the market. You know what I mean? Like, you just know what you're getting into. That's what they're doing. They're doing it in VR, and they're going to do it in AR, I think, as well. Because they have to iterate quickly to stay on top of the curve and still be relevant in all of this. They've got all these sharks coming for them. Rowdy, I think there's going to be competition in this space before long. I'll say,
and
within
also
the next 12 months.
if you're already invested in an ecosystem, and I know that Meta is now pushing, their ecosystem very much because they now integrated Meta AI and WhatsApp and Messenger, but like in that ecosystem, a lot of people are still with the other giants, being Google with Google Home, or Amazon with Amazon Echo, or Apple with Apple Home. Like, all of these devices are already there. So I don't think that those players will wait much longer to bring out something like this to add to that entire list of devices. So unless you really, really want to get something like that right now, I would say like give it a little while to see, what are those other big players doing, because then you might be able, instead of like investing in another ecosystem, you might be able to get something in the ecosystem you've already invested in. That's just
Companies love leapfrogging each other. That's the other thing, right? And I can't wait to see how all of this kind of plays out. And there's a lot of these devices we've seen now in the press where, it's basically AI on your shirt. It's AI, as a companion app. It's either through your phone, but now it's going to come into your glasses. And obviously we've got this here. But the ease of use for me is probably the number one thing. Like listening to tunes, taking a picture, asking a question. Simply those three things. That's the value proposition to me and why I still want one. And now that the sun's coming out again, I'm like, I'm going to get myself some transition lenses. Get
I
this
do
thing
wish,
sorted.
man, some of the new frames though, I'm like, oh man, I kind of wish that I got those
I
instead.
know.
But
They
then I
look so
wouldn't have
good.
the cool videos that I have now if I waited. So I'm like, I guess it's how
That was
products
very
work.
impressive, yeah. When you showed that video, that made me realize, like, wow, okay, they got something special here. When you showed that vacation trip, that's like, I mean, for that market segment of people who travel a lot or who vlog or do anything like that, it makes things a lot easier, and people are willing to
did
pay
also
for
try
making
them.
things easier. Go ahead.
I tried them on a roller coaster. I saw someone had done that, and I do not recommend it. I had even one of the straps. Like I have one of those nerdy, straps to keep it on your head, but I felt
It'll
like
just
I
come
had to
right
hold
off.
on to my glasses the whole time. And so,
Yeah.
and I'm a person that likes to hold on. Like I need to grip the roller coaster. So I just
Yeah.
had to, I don't know. It was not a fun experience. Do not recommend.
Must have been
But the
terrifying. You felt like
footage
you were going to
was
fall out, or your glasses were going to fall out, or both.
mostly my glasses. I was like, I don't want to have to pay another, because I didn't get them sent to me. I paid my own money for these.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's like I don't want to have to, but I guess I could got the new frames. So
Right? There's a benefit to everything. So I was browsing earlier. I couldn't see all the new frames as optional options for me in Canada, but anyway, I'll let you know if I finally bite the bullet or convince the wife and we both get those glasses. The thing that I love them for, and this is what's dragging me back to them, is on my phone I have videos of my kids from 6 months and a year ago or whatever when I had them, and the way it captures that moment, and it captures, like, it does it better, and it does it invasively. I didn't pull a camera out. I didn't, look at this thing. I was looking at my kids, and it just happened to be recording at the same time. So it feels like you've recorded a memory. You don't do that with a phone. With a phone, you like look at something through the phone, and it kind of ruins your active memory. And then you capture the thing. This is that bit different, and that's why I'm gonna get sucked back in soon. Anyway.
person will behave different knowing that they're being filmed. Once you kind of realize you're filmed, maybe not kids so much, but as adults, you're like, oh, do I look okay? Or like,
It's one of the
you
main
start
reasons
to-
it's one of the main reasons for me still that I'm not really onto this, because if that's the major use case, it's still not. That's for me not. I still like to have my memories in my mind instead of on a device. I like that distinction between the two. So for that reason, I would not get it. But I see.
You're saying you wouldn't want the recorded memory to replace your active memory when you view it, because you'd view it a couple times and then it would replace it. Is that what you're saying?
I don't feel. I'm not the kind of person who records everything, and I like that. If that makes sense. Like I don't.
Yeah. I'm with you.
I don't want to record too much. I mean, I get it though. I get why people do it, and especially as you get older, core memories are maybe. But still, like for me, it's special to have a memory that is fleeting, that is able to disappear. I think that's what makes it so poetic.
Exactly the same. Exactly the same.
The glasses, you're a little more removed, and that you don't have to worry about holding the phone.
Yeah.
But I know that mentally, I'm still thinking about, is this framed well? Because I can't tell. So you're still trying to like move your head to make sure you're getting it like positioned right because it's vertical. So it's not quite there yet where it's seamless with like, yeah, I'm totally 100% absorbed in my environment, but better, better than having your phone and just not even looking at the thing directly.
That's the part I like, because I get it. I get, whether it's my wife or my kids, they all say it. They're like, hey, Dad, put your phone away or whatever, and I don't like having that thing pull me. Now, the thing we're missing right now is any applications, right? You can talk to the device or whatever, and I won't belabor this, but I'm looking forward to, this is segueing into the next part, Meta's Project Nazaire, which is going to be their first true pair of AR glasses. And apparently Mark is he's angling for an iPhone grade moment for the industry at that stage. So you get decent AR style experience with your smart glasses, that fusion. And so I thought that was pretty neat. With that, and on the flip side of the spectrum, I think I gave you a link to this one, Rowdy. Let's cut to a viral tweet about remote working that Jose prompted me with. And in his absence, I wanted to show this off. It shows a man sitting in a comfy office chair, remote controlling a full form excavator in real life. I'm talking a big feckin' truck. So this guy looks like he's sitting down to play Elite Dangerous. No,
Maybe
He's,
he is too.
he's on the job. Now, there isn't a VR headset in here, but, that's not far flung from his 5-camera setup, showing a digger at a remote location. But the internet loved this one because it's like, this guy's, on the job, but he's just sitting in a chair at home. Like, there are some jobs that you think you can't do from an office, from the comfort of your home. But guess what? Now you can. So
I think that's mind-blowing, yeah. Because I think we're going to see this more and more, especially with these other players entering the market that are maybe not that aimed in gaming, like the Apple Vision Pro, where we see this kind of stuff happening more and more. It does make it a little bit scary because low-cost workers are going to become even more low-cost workers because now they can work from operate a machine. Although I recently read somewhere there was a shop where it was a shop without any cashiers, but they had virtual cashiers, and they were all based in India. But there was all on screen, and they were you would have to interact with the cashier on the screen. I was like, that's just crazy. You're replacing lower cost workers with even lower cost workers. These kind of things are happening.
It's a different kind of person. Because you think of construction workers as they like to go in and get their hands dirty, but now they almost have to be sort of like engineers, a totally different kind of person. And so what's going to happen to the people who like getting their hands dirty? What are they going to have to move on to? Because it's
so we're saying that what we're saying is there's a job career path here. If you're into Lawnmower Simulator, that's just training for next year when you'll be able to get a job. So, whatever you've been doing, you've been cleaning lawns, you've been spraying stuff down, you've been giving virtual haircuts. Can you imagine walking to a barbershop? There's no barbers. There's just a thing with knives. And you're like,
Handy from Fallout.
Please don't cut me. What was his name?
Mr. Handy from Fallout. The robot with all the arms and stuff. I'm here to give you a haircut and perform surgeries. Which one are you here for today?
God, you scare me so much, Adam. This actually also reminded me of a business that unfortunately has gone on pause. Rowdy will remember this one, I think, because we showcased it at least once or twice on the podcast, which was a Ukrainian business, my second Ukrainian dip for the day, and that was remote control robots through Isotopium Chernobyl, a front-end, web-based game session where you controlled 6-wheel robots, kind of like in one of those robot death shows, where they had a 1:6 scale of Chernobyl, and you'd drive these robots around, and you had lasers on the front of the tanks and all this, and you were against opposition. You were against other players driving real physical robots in Ukraine, not kind of east of Kiev is where they were situated, and you would pay for tokens for token time to log in through your web browser, get a live camera feed. And then with WASD and stuff on your keyboard, you'd be controlling these and you'd be battling robots remotely out of Ukraine, which was so cool. They moved on to other projects. That was by Remote Games was their name. Very kind of standard name, right? Remote Games was the game studio. But it was a really cool piece of technology to have actually touched that, felt it, and felt like the latency actually wasn't as bad as you'd think.
This is not
so
new,
that kind
though.
of tech.
None of this tech is new, right? Especially in high risk scenarios, it's been for example, on bomb removal or excavation, even I think that we see here, in very dangerous zones or nuclear waste removal or any of these kind of things where human contact should be avoided. These kind of things have been implemented for years, but it's now I think we're getting to a point where the justification of the price that it costs to set up something is probably outweighing or is probably finally coming to terms with the cost benefit that you get from that. So now
network bandwidth, latency, so all these things are plummeting in cost.
Yeah, jobs that are maybe not as high risk as those, but now are medium risk or medium high or any of these kind of jobs where there's still manual labor involved. There's still a certain risk because at an excavation site there's risk as well. But it's now justifiable to do that in a remote position because the cost of these kind of technologies has dropped so much.
All that I want, very simple, very, very simple little ask. All I want. Robot Wars. Rowdy and I go head to head. And, we wear our VR headset. But the robots are the size of skyscrapers. They're somewhere in the Mojave Desert or something. and this is all telecast live, and we're just battling giant
Yeah.
metal robots.
Let's do it next
play that
episode.
Sounds good. All right.
I'll come to Toronto. I heard there's a lot of space there.
Just destroying buildings and people screaming. All right. So a little bit on Apple then. Let's move into the Apple camp. So like PSVR 2, we heard just shortly after the release, the rumor mill has been spinning on orders being cut from their kind of Asia-based suppliers, back from 700,000 units of their $3,500 device down to 400,000. Now, that's not a surprise if it's true. I'm going to treat that as rumor mill for right now. But on the back of this, I wanted to mention a second rumor, and we got this through, sadly, it's Bradley, was the murmurs of a 400-gram Apple Vision, not Apple Vision Pro, mind you. This is a stripped-down, lighter version. You could call it Apple Vision Air if you like, being launched potentially between June and September 2025. So I personally think Apple need to pivot pretty hard after AVP dropped. I think they probably knew that before launching the product anyway, given the price point, given the amount of technology that's in there, and given the weight and current form factor with the dangling umbilical battery attachment. But this is the first murmurs we're getting of the next product, right? So a kind of a lighter version. Just to, again, your Quest 3 and Quest 2 is around about 500 grams, so targeting something that'd be a little bit lighter than that, make it a bit more comfortable on your noggin. The other thing that we've got is a couple of renders of this kind of product, what it might look like. God, we spent, 4 years ogling at Apple renders and trying to not spend entire podcasts talking about the potential for an Apple headset. Well, now we can spend parts of our podcast looking at renders for the next version of the Apple headset. So here's one with, again, no head strap. So those VR users of us who know we need a head strap, we kind of look at it and go, it's just a ring around the rosy, so to speak, around the head. And shows some really nicely detailed renders with a kind of an Apple look to, facial tracked, photon real pass-through AR VR headset potentially from Apple. I don't think that's the V2, but maybe that's V5 down the road for us. It's still got a that particular image had the fingerprint magnet front end, which I'm not a big fan of, and I also think you shouldn't wrap this kind of form factor in glass if you can avoid it. But
Still glad.
Looks sexy. I'll take that. What do you think about these renders?
No way. I mean, no, it's not gonna happen. I mean, I get this is a designer who made it. I don't think it's an engineer, but I just don't. It's just gonna fall off, right? Like, how does this?
The straps look way too thin. Like,
I don't. Yeah,
I did get to try an Apple Vision Pro finally, though. And
Oh, did you?
What people
Cool.
are talking about with the lack of top strap. It was just to try out, because I went to Amaze VR, the people who they have the concerts that are in VR, like Adventure Sevenfold, Megan Thee Stallion, etc. I went to their offices and they had one to try it out there. And yeah, I did feel like I had to keep holding the Apple Vision Pro. Like, it felt weird to not have a top strap. Like, it just, I don't know. So now I get what people are complaining about. But it was cool. It took some time to get used to, like.
I like the idea of removing it, but I don't know. I think
Not
it's
yet.
Yeah, I think it's too early.
Yeah, it's not
I'd like to be proven wrong though. Like I would love it if that was the case, but I just
Apple,
don't.
you had one job. You were supposed to prove us wrong. You were supposed to prove. I know some people love their Apple Vision Pros, so keep loving them. I mean, that's the thing. Don't allow someone else's opinion of a product to undermine your own. Like, stay firm with that, right? I think that's one of the most important things is that we're humans. We're shaped differently. We have different interests. I certainly am not going to be barked down off of loving my PSVR 2 just for people who've had a bad time with that headset. But that's been true right along the way with the VR story. Like my Oculus Go, a lot of people didn't like that headset, and I loved it at the time. Rezal, thanks for the donation. I'm just going to shout you out there before we move on to the next piece. Pico are also busy catching up, and they have a speckled, framed Pico prototype that's been spotted in the wild, sporting I'll call it 3-camera interface at the front end. So again, just taken a direct page out of Meta's book, trying to clone the Quest, it looks like. So they cloned the Quest 2. Now it's time to clone the Quest 3. Looks like it's got a depth sensor and stereo pass-through cameras on the front end of this thing. I also think it's kind of funny because it looks like this prototype that was caught in the wild is the same speckled front end that they did when they were trying to prototype the Pico 4. So although Pico 5 was canceled, looks like they're not totally out of the runnings. They're trying something out. It'll be interesting to see what they come out with next.
Pico Zebra.
A dumb question. Like, is the speckle because the whole casing of the headset isn't the final product, or are they trying to like hide?
Is it camouflage? Yeah.
I mean, like,
very effective camouflage.
Where is he? I don't see anything on the picture.
Yeah, I don't see it. Just glasses.
I just see a line. I just see some sensors. But I don't know, like, what is... I feel like somebody knows, but I don't know. Like, what is that pattern for? Because I know they've had it on the other iteration before.
I don't know. It stands out. I think Meta's... Remember when Meta did the whole, like, sending boxes out and it was an iron? It was, like, pretended to be an iron.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's a much sleeker way, like, more Apple-style way of, like, hiding the product that they're trying to give to devs. But I don't know. It seems to be their fingerprint for speckling. If anyone knows in chat, please tell us. But yeah, they love zebras. I don't know. Leopards.
It makes me want it more. It's like, because it's like draws attention to it. Like, the hell is that? It's kind of the opposite of what they want to do. But I don't know.
The target market is 60-plus-year-old ladies in Florida. Could be. They love this kind of leopard prints thing. So, all right. With that, on to, I'll call it our main topic of the day. But this is because of how much of a pivotal point it is for us. The gate just flung wide open. I'm talking about Meta Horizon OS, the operating system that now Mr. Mark Zuckerberg has said will run on other hardware. So the Meta software stack is essentially being white labeled and stuck into other hardware stacks. Also, another huge piece of news. So two of these in one. App Lab is also being dissolved. So the App Lab that we had previously is being brought into the main store. With these two major chess plays, Meta is taking on three main competitors. Sony as a straight VR to VR game competition. Apple going after the Mac versus PC analogy, where Meta is claiming to be the open, moddable PC-like VR experience. Fair enough. Zuckerberg's going to have to convince me of that one. And then finally, Valve, right? But why Valve? Because they're opening the store like Steam to allow for all kinds of entries. Provided you meet some basic minimum standards, it's now, I think, great for developers who have smart ideas because they'll be able to float to the top, get to sales. It's going to be less curated. So as an end user, I've got questions, but it's an environment, an ecosystem where I think great ideas will win. So Zuckerberg also mentioned in a shoddily composed tweet where he's holding a little lav mic, and I don't know. They're going for this low production probably for the TikTokers out there on purpose. But in order to echo the message, they actually mentioned that they want Google Play Store to be able to run on Quest, i.e. your mobile apps to be able to run just in the headset. I'm really curious about the new store interface. How will users find their content? I mean, hopefully a solid review system, kind of like what Steam has. Heck, as far as I care, they can copy that. But how are they going to tackle review bombing? They've been facing that on their own store. I don't know. Unless you've got X number of hours, you can't review it. How are they going to encourage users to submit, quality, well-detailed reviews? One of the problems with a review system that's tied to a VR headset is I'm in a headset. Who wants to point a laser at a keyboard and type out a long message? So those are challenges they got to overcome. But also with this news, another big piece of information that came with it is the news about the partners that they have. So they're expanding their operating system, the software stack, to other providers. Some of you will remember the Rift S fondly, as I do, the partnership between, at the time, Oculus, Facebook, and Lenovo. So Lenovo are coming with a headset for productivity, learning, and entertainment, leveraging Meta's new open Horizon OS software stack. And also on the gamer side, we've got ROG, the Republic of Gamers by Asus, and they're going to make a performance gaming headset using this software stack. So strange. It's really strange. I think it positions Meta to really become kind of the Microsoft of VR. And one of the points of view that I would just kind of ask there is also, with this move, with this change, is it good or bad? And are Meta really ready for it? Because I think about John Carmack's position a couple years ago, where he said, basically, peace out. I'm getting out of here. The software stack that you guys have has been bastardized quest after quest ever since the go. You guys haven't tidied up the shop. It's now a mess. Good luck. Peace out. I'm gone. Now, that wasn't the reason for his departure, but I'm squashing some history together there. I'm a little nervous that they've decided, hey, guess what? We've now got the Windows equivalent of the VR the operating system standard. Let's now apply that to a bunch of other hardware types, and it'll perform how it needs to perform. Like, there's got to be some benchmarks or whatever.
How are developers gonna? Is Quest 3 gonna be the baseline? Because if you have like Asus making super higher end headset, are games gonna be able to be more graphically intense? But then it's only for Asus's Horizon OS headset, and then how is that going to show up on the store? Is each game listing on the store going to be like supports these headsets, and the headset list is like 10 long? And how would you even? I don't know. I do also have a lot of
seems like it's going to bring some chaos. My thought of this is your baseline benchmark, let's say, is going to be Meta's latest consumer-facing product. So I'm just going to say Quest 4. Quest 3 to Quest 4 to Quest 5, whatever. That'll continue. So that's like your basic minimum spec, right? And then you have hardware from other providers that maybe has better resolution, has different features or whatever. But those headset providers are being extended this capability to meet that minimum benchmark, apply the software stack so they don't have to develop their own in-house ecosystem. The whole software stack makes it easier for them to kind of iterate on the hardware side. I think this relationship makes a lot of sense. What we don't want is it to just devolve into what PC gaming is today to some extent, where there's just everything from a Raspberry Pi up to a 4090 in a PC, right, rendering the game. Will the game run? Maybe. I don't know.
I don't know. Like, I mean, what they were saying in this video is they're making their OS available, right? So to these hardware providers. So these hardware providers will be able to build from that OS. So I think that those benchmarks will likely be met by the hardware developers themselves. The interesting thing I found from that video is actually they talk about 3 computing platforms, right? They talk about mobile, which they say we lost because it's Apple who won that. It's a closed ecosystem, blah blah blah. They say PC they won, which I also don't really agree with. But it's an open system. And I'm assuming that they're referring there to Linux then, because I like Windows.
I think they're saying I would say they have one there, Rowdy. So the use of Meta's VR headsets as a PC VR game.
Right. I don't think he's talking about that. I think he's talking about in the history of the world, like where he's talking about mobile computing, PC computing, and now they're moving into spatial computing, which is where Meta is focusing on. But the part that I don't really understand yet, and I don't know how Facebook or Meta is going to position themselves there, is for spatial computing currently. We still, like, if we're talking about real computing power and development and these kind of things, you need hardware currently still, unless you go on the more expensive route of buying cloud servers and this and that. But I don't really feel like, especially not indie developers, they're ready for that. So a lot of those developers, they have a MacBook or they have a very heavy PC, and that's where they develop on. And sure, like, Facebook or Meta is maybe providing the OS that is, the best for maybe spatial computing, but it is not coupled currently to any hardware. So my question is, are they going to release that OS on those open source computing platforms like Linux that you can now install like an OS platform on there where you can start developing on, whether you have a headset or not? Or is that, I mean, this is maybe a little bit dreamy because I don't know if they're gonna continue with something like that, but I do feel like they are currently missing what those other players do have, like the MacBooks, the PCs, they have hardware where this can be run on. But I don't feel like Facebook has really been developing something catered to that market. It's for their headset and developing for the headset. But like a platform where you could work with, like Mac OS or Windows or Ubuntu or any of these kind of things, to see that more from Meta, I think that will combine
Bring
nicely.
back the Rift Store.
Yeah, like
it definitely revives the Rift Store straight away to some extent. Now, you can do a lot on a Quest device these days, right? Between Xbox Cloud Gaming, Steam Link, you can do a lot without a cable to a machine, but you still have that grunt of a box sitting there,
right,
with appropriate dedicated
but can you
discrete
do
graphics
spatial
capability.
computing with it? Because I still feel like Apple Vision
Right,
Pro,
productivity wise, what do we have
Apple,
from Meta?
Exactly, because Apple Vision Pro, you can link it up to your MacBook and you then be able to use the computing power of that M2 or M3 chip as well. So I just don't see a device where what Facebook or Meta has that you can use that can offload that, core computing, heavy duty work off, because you can't do that on a Quest 3.
They need to go deeper into bed with Microsoft, and they need to partner. I'd say even with the graphics cards providers, to build a software stack that allows them to integrate seamlessly with with Windows or Linux. And,
or
just
release their own OS. Release an OS that you can install on a machine that would allow. But I mean, it's risky to go into that because you're going to be competing with players that have been around for so long and open source competitors like Ubuntu and Fedora and all of these that are available.
They have the playing cards. They could partner, Rowdy. I mean, they should.
That's what I'm thinking. If they partner with hardware developers to build those computing devices that link then to Meta, but again, it's a risky move still to do that, because how long is that still going to be valid? Because maybe 5-10 years from now, everything is cloud. So that way they're if they're going that way, but they should be a little bit more clear about that. How would you do it currently, right?
Yeah. And also, there was a good question there in chat: is it good or bad for devs? I mean, I think devs would normally see this as, okay, great, people can play with the headset that they want to play. The problem comes to, I'll call it quality control. Like when you've got 70 variants of your app to try out all these different, funky situations, you're going to end up with so many permutations that it's unsupportable. So what they end up having to do is test on leading devices, procure those devices, and then use it as a test bed. That's tough for an indie dev, right? But the thing I'm most concerned about, I think this is it's a good move for Meta strategically. I see why they're doing it. I'm really surprised App Lab lived its short time in the sun and now it's going away. I think it may be good news for SideQuest because they no longer have that sandwich layer for the truly experimental stuff, which is kind of cool for them. I think for Meta's ecosystem and our user base, and me as a caring, user, for some time now, we've had problems with new release content, finding stuff that's either on App Lab or not, and that's one of the barriers they're dropping. But I am a little bit worried, and I see some of this in the chat as well. Like once that becomes a chaotic storefront, the filtration matters. Like our tools to be able to interface with, 10 times or 100 times the volume of titles, especially the junk that's in the system. Think about Steam, right? When you go looking for a Steam VR game, how easy is it to locate, the pick of the litter, the choice VR game? Would you find it? Would you find Last Clockwinder easily as a new user, for example? How would you?
I
That's
wonder
tough.
if then, because in a lot of reviews, when I look at them, it's to see what kind of, for PC gaming, what kind of setup the person has to make sure that I can actually run this game. So I wonder if, in a way, that'll kind of start to encourage reviews on games for all of these individual headsets. Like, oh, this works with my Asus headset. This works with my Xbox headset. I mean, but that doesn't help the developer problem in that they're going to get people that are like, this doesn't work with my Xbox headset. Or it's like, yeah, because I'm one dude that's got Index, Quest 2, Quest 3, Pico, blah, blah, blah. Now it's even more complicated. I don't know. I don't envy small development teams. This is going to be rough, I think.
And it drives us back towards console or fixed hardware spec, because it's easy to get it right when there's only one configuration that you're building for. So it's interesting. I just don't know if this is going to distract Meta from the kind of central mission in terms of supporting this. And I think, as I said with the John Carmack reference, I would just like to see them tidy up shop. They need to refresh. I think their universal menu system works pretty well, but even when I try to do some basic stuff like, hey, I want to turn on and off hand tracking, you still have to go into their settings, dive in. I usually have to text search to find the option. Like, there's a lot in there. And now they're basically saying, hey, other headsets, you can use our confused stack too. So I want to see them tidy up shop before they give that shop to others to use as well, honestly.
Or even controllers. Like, are they going to, along with the requirement, okay, you use a Horizon OS, are they going to have to use like a Quest-based controller just to also keep button mapping like less confusing?
I don't think so. I think it's going to be open. So like similar to how Steam VR has used it, where you can bring in trackers, you can bring in other peripherals. I mean, all you're really giving them is the software brain. You're not giving them anything on the hardware side. Nothing. And the expectation actually that was laid by Zuckerberg, I think, in a couple articles I saw, was that we won't necessarily see cheaper devices. These might actually be more premium than kind of Quest's devices. And perhaps that's part of the contract when you sign up as a partner, to say you won't underprice Meta's headsets. So they're protecting their spot in the market. That's another way for them to make more money, right? Because again, buying into this ecosystem makes sense.
If the baseline is the Quest 3 and you have this awesome hardware that you can't maximize, because maybe it works with your high-powered headset, but not with the Quest 3. Like, what's the point of buying the higher-powered headset if you have to stick to the bench line? You know what I mean? Like,
so that's not what I meant. So I think the performance of the headset could be better than. So for example, a higher polling rate for the tracking mechanism. It could be a higher resolution screen, a different grade of screen, so it has different characteristics that the end user might want. Cable or no cable, a wireless transmission system. None of that really comes into the software stack side. As long as it's a detected headset, can run the games, but it needs that kind of amorphous model so that it can be supported. And I assume that then that's just some baseline spec that Meta say, you need to have 2 controllers for the hands. You need to have, a baseline of hardware capability. But other than that, kind of, you can dream up Rowdy's once upon a time modular headset. I could just whiz bang a bunch of magnetic modules together, and there you go. You've got the Transformers headset he's always dreamed of.
Oh yeah.
So that's it. Yeah, on Linux, exactly. Cheeky guy. So that's Meta. That's their new Horizon OS. With that, Adam's out on the battlefield today. I'm curious what the sentiment is amongst VR's proud soldiers to give us some releases.
So yo, I'm taking the place of Jose, who was nice enough to send me what he had for this week. And I'm proud of him. The first one that he had sent me is actually a scary game that hopefully maybe he'll play with us one day. This one's called Spectral Scream. This one it's labeled as a co-op party horror game, but I would just say it's mostly just co-op horror. Interesting kind of a party. 1 to 4 players max, and basically needed to survive the purgatory between life and death. So it looks like you have to seal off these certain gates, and while you're doing that, you're confronting different, of course, terrifying creatures and monsters. This is actually going to be a PC VR release, although there is going to be a flat mode as well. So it's going to be on Steam for flat or Steam VR. And this is actually coming out May 9th in early access. And I don't believe that it's got a listing price yet. But if you like ghosts that can threaten you anytime, anywhere, and sealing off gates in co-op, this might be for you. I want to convince Jose to play a scary co-op game with us one day.
I think Jose saw the trailer and immediately decided not to come on the show.
Exactly. He's too scared.
I know what Adam's gonna say, so I'm just gonna skip this one. She's gonna tell me to play scary games, and I'm gonna say I don't want to. I'm just not show up.
We'll get him. We'll warm him up.
Day. The second game that we have on here is Ultimate Swing Golf, which to me, I don't know if Top Golf is something is that only United States based? It's like Top Golf where you don't actually have like a course. You're just swinging to see as far as you can hit the ball.
Like a batting
Um,
cage for golfing, right?
Yeah, essentially. So this looks like Top Golf, but in VR and with different environments that you can be able to swing in. It does have multiplayer, so you can have 1 to 4 players in online golf, and it's also made by developer Easy Come Easy Golf. I don't know if that's a Zim approved pun, or sort of.
Sure.
It tries.
Tries.
And there's also apparently a mixed reality mode, which I think can be quite fun. I think I would rather have a course maybe for mixed reality mode, like like a little putting thing in your house. I don't know how it would go for just swinging, but we'll see. I'm just making assumptions without having really looked too far deep into this. But anyway, this is going to be for Quest 2 and 3. It's $29.99 US dollars or 24 pounds and will be available on the 16th of this month.
Every character in the game looks like he or she works for like a Silicon Valley company.
Yeah.
They all look so Californian, you know what I mean?
Is it because they're also playing golf though, and that
Yeah.
seems like a very
They're all like, like 25 to 35 years old, like hair slicked back and like everything.
they can
is-
afford to have golf as a pastime. Okay. And the last game we have is Stride Fates. So this is coming out May 16th for PC VR and PSVR 2. Although it's on the Quest now, so not necessarily a new title, but it'll be new for PC VR and PSVR 2 users. Basically, you step into the shoes of a parkour spec ops officer. You can traverse and shoot your way through rooftops, basements in a dystopian city. It's a full-fledged sequel to Strides and pushes the parkour action even further with new gameplay and a story-driven campaign. So if you're familiar with Strides, very, very parkour heavy, but this one's sort of adding more combat into the mix. There is no price for this for PCVR or PSVR 2 yet, but the Quest price is $29.99 US dollars or about 24 pounds. So I imagine it'll probably convert similarly.
Be around there. Yeah, it's usually a couple bucks more, so probably $35. I'd imagine.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's
Stride Fates.
expensive.
It's
really
getting there.
fun.
It's getting there for a Joyway title. That's what I'll say. I've
Yeah.
given up on them a long time ago. Like
Yeah.
the amount of emails I've had from them where they're like, "Hey, you want to cover the next version of our game?" I'm like, I don't at this point. You guys keep trying. You're gonna have to really convince me. I've heard some good things about this
Stride.
from people who've played it and enjoyed it. Yeah, it's Mirror's Edge in VR basically. But
I thought this was like an update to the.
They said it's the sequel. How do you have a sequel to a game that
that's
never
not
really
finished.
finished? I don't.
Don't they have? Isn't there like a zombie game they were working on, and then like
Yeah.
a post-apocalyptic boomerang
So
game?
many games.
They all
games.
kind of sound similar too. That's why I can't have a hard time thinking of what they're called. But yeah. So Stride
look,
Fates.
I look as a fan, a huge fan of Hello Games and No Man's Sky. The game that came out of the gates was crap. Most people didn't like it. They doubled down, and they ended up giving value. This continual repackaging of new ideas, throwing it out there, getting some take up in the market, and moving on to the next project. Like they need to stick to their guns at some point. They just need to. I'm kind of pissed off at them at the minute because it's like I want to applaud them for sticking it out.
Yeah,
but
I know what you mean.
Stick it out with a vision. Like have a vision, stick to a project, show us what you can do. Because their technical acumen is actually pretty high. I've played some of their stuff. I've liked it. The fact that it's half baked, the fact that they move on to something else, that's the part I have a problem with. They're good VR devs. They're just bad at marketing. I think their stuff. And they're bad at stick-to-itiveness. Like they just need to.
I like that word.
Show us something.
They did a good game that I liked. I can't remember the name of it, unfortunately, but it was like a noir rhythm, almost like Pistol Whip, sort
that
of.
was
Like
good.
that one I really liked, but I don't know if they're doing anything with that one anymore. Just like other stuff that they're making.
It's like when you see a friend of yours who's 20-something years old and he just goes from girl to girl, and you're like, just stick with one of them for feck's sake. You'll be happy. You'll find happiness. Just like, I just want them to find happiness. I want them to
commitment
commit.
issues.
Please. Ugh.
So yeah, that's the 3 that Jose sent over to me, and hopefully we'll one day convince him to play a scary co-op game.
Yeah.
Maybe if you pay us enough money. I'm just kidding.
Well, there's one more I'm going to add to that because I didn't know if he would catch it or not, and it's probably again because it's horror, it's not his maybe cup of tea. Rowdy, look for a trailer on this if you
Sure.
can. Madison,
Oh,
Madison
yeah.
VR. So the game, the things I've heard about this, having not played it yet myself, but I've got a copy, and thanks to the devs, is that it is for horror lovers. It is a continually changing, not in any way a one note horror experience from end to end. Some people are giving it 9s and 10s out of 10s because it's so fearful and engaging that it keeps you uncomfortable for the whole ride along, and it doesn't reuse its party tricks.
Just
So-
a moment here. Is this a game that was, because I'm looking for the trailer, is this a game that was first released and then now
It's
it's
flat.
VRified? Okay, so
PSVR 2.
I'll show,
Look
I'll
for
show
PSVR
the,
2. It was flat.
but is there a
then
PSVR
it
2
was-
trailer? I don't see that.
Shh. Doesn't
I
matter.
know,
Just show
okay,
them whatever.
yeah,
We'll just
yeah,
give them the
okay, I
gist
got
of the
it.
game. It's
Yeah.
fine. But I've heard great things about it. It looks pretty neat. Arcane says, must look into this since I live in Madison.
Oh,
You
God.
must live in that place. But it looks terrifying. And from things I've seen, for example, being in a dark environment, having a ghost or something chase you, taking pictures and having that come up on the Polaroid, like just some of the scares in this look really traumatic, in a good way, right? And again, this is a must do for Jose, I would say. But if you're a PSVR 2 owner, I'd say that's the heavy hitter from kind of the last week or two. Give that one a go, particularly if you missed the
Yeah.
sale on Resident Evil 4 remake.
The blacks probably look great on this too, because nothing has
Exactly.
come close to PSVR 2, blacks. So I feel like horror games lend itself really well. I feel like I like horror games, but only if I have like other people with me. So I would only stream a horror game. I wouldn't just play it by myself for fun, like a single player thing. Because it's like, why? I at least want people being entertained by my, crapping my pants or screaming or something.
Like if
I
you're
just-
gonna take the trauma, you might as well do it in a social
Right.
environment, right? Let
Yeah.
someone take like I don't want just gray hair for nothing. Like yeah, I'm still to this day. I'm convinced I accelerated my gray hair with dreadhalls and Resident Evil and titles like that. Oh, geez. So because in VR, it's no joke, man. You get scared. I remember the first time I went through. Oh shoot, what's the name of that game now? Adam, you play it quite a bit. Where you're hunting ghosts. In the truck.
Phasmophobia?
Phasmophobia. When the first time in Phasmophobia, man, I got, when you get like that, like little kid scared, where you're like, you just want to peace out. Like you're like, I am done. I am scared. That flicked the switch for me, even though the game was janky as all hell at the beginning. There you go. But anyway, PSVR 2 puts you right in the seat. Those darks are evil, man. And even the Mura in the headset like adds to the horror environment for some reason for me. So it's like a cinematic effect. So that's another one. But Adam, thank you very much for covering releases. I appreciate that. Can you give us a rundown again on the prices and the titles again, if you wouldn't mind?
Yep. We've got Spectral Scream, goodness, which is out May 9th for PC VR and flat. No price for that one. We've got Ultimate Swing Golf May 16th, Quest 2 and 3, about $29.99 USD, 25 pounds. And finally, Stride Fates, which is going to be new to PC VR and PSVR 2, May 16th, probably about $30 US or 24 pounds, maybe add a couple bucks, depending.
Cool. Very good. Well, thanks again. There's some releases for you to chew yourselves into. This podcast runs every 2 weeks, live every other Saturday on YouTube and Twitch. So catch us. We're live from 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern, and 6 p.m. in the United Kingdom. An audio version belts out our dulcet tones on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Spotify around about midweek. And we add timestamps shortly after the podcast airs for easy viewing for Sunday afternoon tea. I want to thank chat for being with us live. Always good to have you guys here. And do you guys have anything else to get off your chest before we wrap on this one?
I just want to say thanks to my mom. No, I'm joking.
All right, Rowdy's mom. Well, be good. Go put those meaty VR controllers to good use while we're apart. And this crew will see you on the next FReality Podcast.
All right. Bye.